also.
All right, thank you. So welcome back. All right, so the Girl Lead community is a community focused on teaching ladies skills relating to technology and entrepreneurship, and we're a social enterprise on a mission to bridge the digital gender divide through education, training, and employment in information technology. And like I said earlier, entrepreneurship. We provide STEM education and entrepreneurial training for opportunities and job placements for girls and young women in the IT and business sector, while also providing professional services like software development, consultation, and outsourcing for companies. And through partnership and support of organizations like Ashoka Chainmakers, Tech Cabal, United States United States State Department, European Business University of Luxembourg, University of Connecticut, and then the solutions and impacts of our fellows in their workplaces and communities. Through the solutions and impacts of our fellows in their workplaces and communities. So, right now, impact since inception, we've had 6 boot camps. We've trained over 1,500 girls, and then we've impacted over 12,000 people. So if you are interested in joining the community, if you're a first timer, at the end of the webinar, we'll be sharing our social media links and where you can message us to get started and just generally connect with us if you want further information. Okay, so today's speaker is Precious Okwu. He's a cloud engineer, and before he comes up to give his presentation, I'll be giving a brief summary of his profile, a brief bio. So, Precious is a cloud engineer with over 10 years of experience in building software as a service business applications. He is cloud certified and for 10 times and holds a bachelor's degree in computer science. He is dedicated to building the next generation of African cloud engineers through Fulcrum 6, and in his free time, he tinkers with his Raspberry Pi boards and builds cool projects. He hopes to one day hold a doctorate degree in distributed computing. So please, Precious, you are welcome, and we're ready for you to hit us with that sweet knowledge. So Precious,
Oh,
welcome. Yeah, thank you.
all right.
Yes,
Let me
we have
switch
the
on my
floor.
video.
All right, thank you.
Um, Let me see if you're getting me ready. Hi guys. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, my name is Precious. He has rightly introduced me, and I'll be discussing with you. It's not basically a presentation. I'll just be discussing with you and getting to hear, answer your questions, and possibly guide you to through the steps required in building a career in cloud computing. I want it to be as interactive as possible because I figured out throughout a few years of having these discussions with people, sometimes when you make it look like a boot camp, a lot of people don't get the value that they hope to get from it. So it's just somebody comes, just creates like a presentation, talks through it, and at the end of the day, just says thank you. Any questions? And a lot of people have questions, but they are not able to answer. But I don't want it to be like that. I want it to be quite interactive. And I've added a very small demo, and we'll be looking at hands-on what cloud is. So it's not just going to be what your career is, but I'm going to show you when you decide to go through and build a career in cloud computing, some of the things you'll be experiencing and some of the things you'll be doing. So I'll just take a few um, minutes to share my screen. Just give me a moment. I'll have to readjust my camera, so I'll just Sorry, I'm in Kigali and the weather is freezing here, so I had to get my jacket. All right, let me just share my screen. Let's do this. So, build a career in cloud engineering. Like I've introduced, that this is what we'll be discussing today. The first thing is, I'm a cloud engineer with over 10 years of experience in building software projects. So basically, I started out as a software engineer, but then over the years, as I continued in my career as software engineering, I have this thing of looking at what's the next trend in computing. You get, and in 2016, I created my first account in AWS, but I didn't get to use it. Um, then eventually, also I got a BS in 2013. So I don't know if this helps, but necessarily you don't need a computer science degree to pursue a career in cloud engineering. That's why I don't really emphasize it. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, Precious, we can hear you.
All right, thank you. So that's why I don't really emphasize it when I'm speaking about this, but I have a degree in computer science. Now, when I created my accounts first in AWS, and I'm going to go ahead and explain what AWS means. It's a cloud computing provider. Um, I I wasn't so serious about it, but then I knew that was where um, um, technology was heading to, tech was heading into. And but eventually in 2018, I got the opportunity to in 2017, I got the opportunity to use it to deploy one or two projects. Then eventually in 2018, 2019, it became a mainstream of my daily work life. And I eventually got my first certification in 2020. And currently I'm 13 times cloud certified. And cloud is my daily job. I build applications, I build infrastructure in the cloud, and I currently work for two companies. One of them is in France, and one of them is in Germany as a cloud engineer. So now I want to answer a very big question a lot of people ask me, because when people hear my story, fortunately for me, I had a career in cloud and software engineering before I ventured into cloud engineering. So when people hear my story, they're like, okay, do I need a to learn coding to become a cloud engineer? And fortunately for some people who have pivoted to cloud, that was the case for them. They were sometime software engineers and they eventually moved into cloud. But the big answer to this question is no. You don't necessarily need to learn coding. It's not a prerequisite to becoming a cloud engineer. I have had to mentor or work with people who had no experience with tech before. But today, recently, one of them called me 2 weeks ago and told me how he had gotten a job as an entry level cloud engineer. And his salary was about from 300K to 500K. I don't want to mention like the exact salary. Um, he got this job without having any experience to cloud. In fact, he started his journey 8 months ago, right? And with consistent progress and effort, he has gotten a job. He works with a company in Lagos, a cloud consulting company, technology consulting company in Lagos. So the big answer to this question is no. You don't need to learn coding. As you go along the line, you need to pick up some necessary skills like coding, but it's not a prerequisite. Nobody should tell you. I don't want you to listen to anybody that tells you that you need to learn coding. Like, oh no, what you're trying to do, you're going in the wrong direction. You actually need to come and learn coding. Then after learning coding, you now pivot to becoming a cloud engineer. That's not true. You can pick up coding as you go, and the your daily job is not even going to be coding, but basically you need to understand coding. But even if you don't have the experience coding, you can actually build a career in cloud engineering. So um, now, why cloud? Why is it, why, when you say cloud, what exactly is cloud? What do you understand? What do people understand as cloud, and what is actually cloud? So people think cloud is, I know some people have that understanding here, and that is what I'm trying to explain. People think cloud is just one thing somewhere in the sky where people just upload data. So if I hook on my laptop and decide to upload a file to my Google Drive, people think that there's maybe in some NASA base station or space based station where people upload their files to. But really, that's not what cloud is, right? I think I have, okay. Cloud is basically another person's computer. So when you decide to go into Google and decide to do a Google search and get results, it's not, you're not doing a, which is powered by cloud, you're not doing a search in the base station or a computer that, or a computer that is located in the cloud. You're basically just accessing someone else's computer. You're basically just accessing Google's computer, Google's servers somewhere in the United States. Maybe some of them are in Lagos. Maybe they have edge locations in Lagos, or the ones in maybe London. So they are just someone else's computer, some other company's computer. Now, why was there a need for cloud? Then the first thing is that you realize that, and I'm going to use these two scenarios, which I know a lot of people are going to be familiar with. You know, in we that grew up in the late 90s, in the 90s and early 2000s, this was a very common thing. For us to go and get a movie, we weren't privileged to things like Netflix, YouTube, and all for entertainment. For you to actually watch a movie, they were or entertain yourself using visual entertainment, there were two things. Either you watched the news or watched the cable television, maybe AIT, maybe VSAT, very big. Not a lot of people had that privilege to watch dish TV. I personally remember watching AIT and NTA, or you rent a movie or you buy a movie, right? And the movie came in cassettes. I've not seen this in a while. And these cassettes were usually in this format, in the format of the lady standing by my left. So you go into the place, you tell them, oh, you hear that this new movie has been trending, and you hear that this is the hottest movie in town. You walk into the movie renting shop, you pick up a movie, and then I think they used to rent it around 30 naira or 20 naira. So you can, yeah, it was around 30 naira. Then they'll tell you if you want to rent part one and part two, you would pay 15 naira, right? So they'll give you like a 10% discount or so. So I think 20% or so. So basically, when we walk into these shops, we get these movies, maybe part one, part two, then you go home. You have to write your name, you have to write your address in case if you lost the movie, because if you lost the movie, you are going to pay for the movie. They will come to your house, speak to your parents, and your parents will eventually pay for the movie. I will be tied you if you had gone to rent this movie without your parents' knowledge. So you would eventually get into hot soup. So when you rent these movies, you watch them. After watching them, you take them back. Now, one thing was that you couldn't watch these movies again if you didn't buy them. Let's even take a scenario where you buy them. When you buy them, if you watch them, let's say you watch them for the first time, you watch them with your cousins for the second time, you watch it with maybe your parents for the third time. At some point, nobody wants to watch it again because for someone like me, I would know every line, I would know every action, I would know everything, I would know what Peter Duce wants to say in the next time, the next act and the next scene, right? So it did not become it wasn't interesting anymore. So you just stash it one place, and that is it. Your money for buying your money, the money you spent in buying the movie is gone. Now, if you rented it, which was a better option, if you wanted to rewatch it, you would have to go and rent it again to watch it, right? So it didn't make it wasn't really beneficial for reuse, right? You couldn't go back to it. You couldn't revisit it. So that was what Netflix did, and you would realize that all these movies came in CDs, and all these CDs, they were storage devices, right? Now, what Netflix came with the idea is that now, because cloud gives us unlimited storage, and I'm going ahead of what I should be discussing, but I'll just give you an intro. Because cloud gives us unlimited storage, and Netflix had to leverage on that feature of cloud to be able to build a rich experience. So what Netflix did was, and it's been one of the best innovations of the decade. right, of the century, actually, not even the decade, right? What they did is that they said, you know what, let's get all these people who produce movies, because we have unlimited storage in cloud computing providers like AWS. Because when you go to AWS warehouses, you see thousands of computers, you have thousands of storage devices. Maybe you have a storage device that can accommodate 40 terabytes, 80 terabytes, 100 terabytes, just one storage device. And AWS has like hundreds of them in their, thousands of them in their data centers, right? And Netflix says, okay, you know what? Since we are able to access unlimited storage, why don't we get these movie providers? Let's build an application, a mobile app, a web app that's going to leverage on cloud because of its unlimited storage. When these movie providers produce these movies, producers produce these movies, they're going to upload it on in Netflix, and people are just going to pay monthly if they want to use the service. And when they pay monthly, they are able to stream as many movies as they want. And that was how Netflix was born. And you see that because of the innovation in what they've done, because I want to watch what's a popular movie now, Anikula, or I want to go back and probably watch it, or I want unlimited access to content, right? I would rather pay for Netflix. I would rather pay $10 per month for Netflix than go and buy a movie online, or go to the market and buy a movie, right? It's more beneficial to me to do that, because at the end of the day, I don't even have to pay every month. If I pay for a month, I can watch 100 movies or 200 movies. That's all I'm doing for the month. But if I don't want to pay for the next month, I wouldn't have to, right? Imagine next month is Christmas and it's a time of celebration, a time of reunion, and you have like a Netflix account at home. Everybody uses it to log in. You have different people using their devices to watch it, to stream content, and no one is preventing the other person from watching, because of course, in at home, if one person was already using the CD, the other person is not going to be able to use it, even if there are two DVD sets or two TV sets at home, right? So this is why cloud came to be, because cloud, people noticed, the service providers and big tech companies noticed a gap. There were not unlimited storage, and there were people could not have access to distributed content. So now, another second example is the example we are all used to, and that is the example of CD drives, memory cards and hard drives. Now, I don't think I have seen um, a CD drive in the past 1 year. I think the last time I saw a CD drive was when I went for an X-ray, and they still use CD drives to do the X-ray. And um, I don't think I've seen a diskette or a memory card. These days, phone don't even come with memory cards, right? Because of the unlimited storage feature of the cloud, you can actually buy storage in the cloud. You can go to Google Drive and say, you know what, I currently want to buy 200 gig in the cloud, and you buy it and you upload your devices there. And for you, it's more beneficial, because if you switch your phones, you can easily go online and re-download your pictures. You can easily go online and re-download your contacts. You can easily go online and re-download your files. So for you, so it's not beneficial for you to use CD drives, to hang flash drives on your neck, walking about, right? So it's actually makes more sense. So this is why cloud came to be, because of the unmet needs of the evolving technology that we are currently experiencing. There had to be people who had the ability, people like AWS, Google, Microsoft, who had the capacity and who had the money. They went on to build cloud services and build data centers to be able to host this data. So I'll just pause now before we move into the next slide. And as I go through these slides, just make sure, feel free to drop your questions and answer, drop your questions and ask me, and I'll answer them straight away, right? Don't wait till I finish. Just ask me your questions. You can unmute and talk and all, so that we know that I know that you're learning, and I know that you're following through. So I'll just give it 1 minute. If anyone has a question, you can just unmute and ask me. If you have any confusion so far in what I've discussed, just going to continue. All right. Seems like everybody has understood what I'm saying. So we'll move on to the next slide, right? And one big question we need to answer this evening: who is a cloud engineer? Who is a cloud engineer? How how do you qualify a cloud engineer? What does a cloud engineer do? So there are three major aspects of cloud engineering. Like when you go into cloud engineering, they are huge, they are bigger. Three major career divisions of cloud engineering. And is either you're managing or you're planning, designing, and developing cloud infrastructure, or you're under maintenance and support, regardless of what your job role is, right? Now, the first thing is a cloud engineer is someone who basically builds, plans, designs, and develops cloud infrastructure. It not just develops the cloud infrastructure. For a cloud engineer, after developing the infrastructure, somebody has to oversee the management of this cloud infrastructure, right? The cloud, let's say you wake up tomorrow and they say, oh, Facebook is down. It's as a result of the infrastructure that has been designed to power Facebook, right? The servers that run Facebook run on, they are down. Maybe there's a misconfiguration. Maybe there is a malfunction of the servers. Maybe the servers are bad, right? Even your laptop, sometimes it goes bad and you have to reboot it, right? So there is somebody who is responsible for planning, designing, and developing cloud infrastructure. And imagine the cloud infrastructure that is required to power something as mammoth as Facebook, that has over a billion users, and you have over 50 million active users at any time, right? Approximately 50 million people logging into Facebook, trying to change their status, trying to check things. And you also know that Instagram today runs on Facebook servers because Facebook owns Instagram, right? So imagine that huge crowd, that huge number of people running. So people have to be responsible for designing, planning, designing, and developing it so that it's secure, so that you don't have someone who just walks in to you don't have somebody who just logs in, who tries to log in, right? And logs in into someone else's account, right? So basically, it's not just the responsibility of a cloud engineer does not just rest on planning, design, and developing. Now, when this has been developed and how is it managed? How do you make sure that the networks are not slow? And I think with this, I'm going to move on to the next bit of this is just going to be a quick demo, maybe one or two topics, and we'll do a quick demo so that you have some context to what I'm discussing. Now, you have somebody who is responsible for managing it. You have somebody who is responsible for knowing that these servers are bad. We need to fix them. We need to remove them. So is still part of management. Somebody who keeps track of what's the state of the cloud infrastructure. Now you now have maintenance and support. Maintenance and support goes under roles like SRE, where you know that people are. Let's say you wake up tomorrow and Facebook is slow. Somebody at the Facebook head office knows that it is slow. You don't actually need to reach out to them because somebody is sitting down in front of the computers, monitoring and making sure that there is a higher latency. People are able to request for their go to their profile or want to access their Facebook messages, and they are able to access it. Now, we are going to discuss cloud providers, and I'm going to run you through this demo, and I think we can discuss other things. Now, cloud providers are companies that are responsible for providing cloud-based services. And these companies are not just anyhow, they are not just your every other day companies. These are companies who have mastered this art. These are companies who understand how distributed systems work and how the cloud works. These are companies who have the financial capacity to build the required infrastructure to create this cloud infrastructure. So the biggest of them, you have Amazon Web Services, you have Google Cloud, you have Salesforce, you have Oracle, you have IBM, you have Microsoft Azure, and you have Alibaba. But today we'll be focusing our demo and we'll be discussing around AWS because first of all, it's the largest cloud provider, and secondly, AWS is the most widely used cloud provider, right? It has the highest number of jobs in my two job functions. I work with AWS. I primarily work with AWS. In a few, I primarily work with AWS. They use a combination of cloud providers like AWS and GCP, but I primarily work with AWS. And so far, in 90% of the jobs I've taken in the past 4 years, 5 years, right? They've had infrastructures around AWS because first of all, their support is great, and they can give their support is great. You have better. Sometimes you get something called AWS credits for you to run your infrastructures, and they can give you as much as $100,000 worth of AWS credits. So they've built like a huge ecosystem of resources so that if you're stuck, you already have resources to lean back to and build better cloud infrastructures. So now I'm going to show you what cloud really is and how um, we build and deploy applications into the cloud. Now, first of all, I'll be using AWS, so I'll just share my screen. I believe you can see my screen, and I'll just go to AWS. And AWS, like I explained, is the largest cloud provider. I already have my personal account on AWS, which I use to build and deploy applications into the cloud. So I'm going to log into this cloud, and I'm going to show you to how I'm going to build and deploy a simple application. It's not going to take us more than 10, 15 minutes for us to do, but I want you to have a lot of context into what this is all about, right? So that I don't just come here and say a lot of jargons and walk away, right? Now, when I go to AWS, if you've not created an account, and you can easily create an account on AWS, but I already have an account. If I wanted to create an account, I'm going to go to my account. I'm going to my management console, right? When you go to the management console, right, this is where you log into the management console. Let's go back. Let me show you something. Now you can start. It used to be here, but it's not here anymore. Or you can just come here and do AWS create account. Just a quick search will take you directly to the create account. Right? It used to be there, but it's not there anymore. But you click here and you create an account. Right? Sign up now. Right? And you can go on and input all the email address, the account name you want. It's just like, and you can verify your email, then continue. But we are not going to create an AWS account today. I'm just going to use it's as simple as creating an Instagram account or Facebook account or anything. So it does not require any level of expertise. So I'll go ahead and log into my already existing account, and I can show you what I want to do. So the first thing I want to do is that I own a company called Fulcrum 6. It's basically a mentorship program that just basically trains people. It's not like what Girls Lead does. It's just we just host boot camps from time to free boot camps from time to time, just teach people, and that's what we do. We are also a technology consulting company that will help businesses, migrate their cloud infrastructure and build train people, train organizations, and do all of this. So um, I'm going to use the account I use for my daily use and log into it. And I already have the domain registered, fulcrum6.com, but I'm going to use like a subdomain to do some of the things I'm going to do. So now when you log into the AWS dashboard, this is what it looks like. So far I've raked up a cost, and I wanted to add that it's actually paid for. But for if you create an account today, it's going to be free. You can use the account for free for the next 1 year. Depending on, like, they give you some services for free, the basic services for free for next 1 year, and you don't have to pay. I've been using this account for like 3 years now, so I'm paying. This is what I'm paying to use it. So I don't want you to get scared, because this was one of the biggest challenge I one of the biggest mistakes I made for in 2016 when I first signed up on AWS, right? I was so scared by the fact that they said there was money involved, and I didn't even go further to discuss or learn it until I started working on a project then. All right. When I had money, I run away like we Nigerians do. Uh, I run away. I say, I know I'm not going to add my cards to this, but that was one of my biggest mistakes because I know if I had started using AWS then actively, I would have been way more experienced than I am today. So don't you have to add your card, and they're not going to deduct any amount from your card if you don't if you use it within the free limit tier. But I encourage you to have an AWS account, right? It doesn't hurt. So I'm going to go ahead and um, switch my region to London. London is actually the fastest region because we are closer to London. Um, So first of all, I want to set up a server, and I want to set up a server. I will not discuss these things. I just want to give you, like, this is not a training or anything. It's just a webinar. So I'm just going to go ahead and just give highlights of the things I want to do. So I want to set up a server, and I want to add just a simple website in it. And I want to, after adding this simple website, creating this simple website in it, I want to shut down the server, start it, and show you what is going to happen when I shut it down and when I start it. I want to show you the concept of cloud and how it works. So I'm going to go on and set up my server. So basically, setting up a server, you use the EC2 service, and you launch an instance. I'm going to launch an instance, and I don't want you to be discouraged with this whole complex view of how this looks, right? It took me a lot of years to get to know them the way I know them, and you don't have to. There are so many services on AWS that you don't have to use all of them. You just have to know some of them, right? Some of these start services are the ones I use on my daily or for my daily needs. So I don't have to learn everything here. When it comes to machine learning, there are different services. When it comes to cost management, customer enablement, there are different services, and they're not important. It depends on what you're trying to do. So I'm just going to set up a small server and call it demo server, and I'm going to use Ubuntu. I think I am done with this. I want HTTP traffic and nothing else. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm adding an 8 GB storage to my server. So it means that if I'm building an application that requires people to upload something, if somebody uploads, if the storage exceeds 8 GB, if the storage uploads exceed 8 GB, then probably I have to increase the storage or delete a few things. It's just like what your laptop, you're starting up a server, and what is the storage that is going to come with the server you're starting up. So I'm going to launch the instance. Oh, sorry, it says keeper name. No, I don't want keeper. Um, so basically, this is how servers are started. Like this is what a server, this is what the concept of a server is. And I didn't show you one part of it, but let me just quickly show it. Let me try starting a new one. So basically, for this server, right, like I told you, a server is just basically someone else's computer. And as I start this server, it's starting it up somewhere else in London region, right? There's a data center, the AWS data center in London is where this server is started. And this is where this server resides. And like you see here, there are servers in US East, US West, US Oregon. It's just like, let me just use a layman's um, explanation for this. It's just like um, we have a website where somebody can come, and maybe you have 5 laptops at home and you rent these laptops, because that is what AWS rent does here. They rent their servers to me and I pay them monthly. So let's say you have 5 laptops in your house, and these laptops you can actually rent them, right? So it means that you have a website where these laptops are being rented. So if I come here and I start one server, I start this server, it starts one of the laptops at home. If I try to start two, three, start four, 5 servers, it will start up your servers, your laptops at home. So it means that after I'm able to, after 5 people or 5 customers start those 5 servers, it means that you don't have any other um, laptop or server to rent. Let's say you're using your laptop as a server, right? And when somebody else comes to start up a new server on your website, it just tells it, oh, sorry, we've exhausted our server limit. But for AWS, it's not like that. They have almost unlimited amount of servers that you can start on it as far as you're able to pay. So I think this gives you more light on what I'm trying to do here. So when I start a server, I'm just basically just starting a computer in a virtualized computer somewhere in London, right? So here, I should have pointed this out. It's a T2 micro, which means it just has 1 GB of memory. It has a one vCPU, and most of our laptops today are like 4 GB of memory. So if I was running something more intensive, right, I would go and say, okay, I would select maybe 4 GB of memory or 8 GB of memory. But you see that the cost is attached to it. It says 0.052 USD per hour. Right. So we are not going to go into the intricacies of this, but I want to show you that we can start as much as um, 96 gig computers with 36 processors and 96 gig of memory on this, and you can install your applications and run them. So I'm just going to cancel this, and we've started our server. Remember, we started this server, and this server is currently running, and we are just let me go into the server and install the applications and show you how it works. So I'm just going to connect into it. So I'm connecting to the server. So for me, of course, I start up a server in London. I want to be able to connect to it and install my applications or upload my applications or do the necessary things I want to do in them. So it's not just when I start up these servers, right? I can't just start using them. I need a way of connecting into them and using them. So I've connected to this server, and this is usually how the interface is, right? It's a server. It's not a desktop computer. It's a server. So basically, it comes in just command line, and I'm just going to update it so that it gets all the latest updates. Like I said, don't get confused with all these things. I don't expect you to learn how to use AWS today or to know everything that is required. But I'm showing you what, when we mean cloud, it's not some voodoo, it's not some magic out there. It's something that a lot of people use on a daily basis and they've built careers on. So I'm updating my server, and it's just the way you update your phone or you update your app or anything or your computers. I'm updating it currently, and it should be done in a few seconds. So it's done. Let me install web server, HTTP server, sorry. Yes, so I'm done installing a HTTP server, a HTTP application on my server. Now, I want to explain a few things before I try to test this, right? Now, there is something called the concept of IP addresses, and the IP addresses is just a way devices are recognized globally, right? So, which means that every device that runs on the internet, if your phone is connected to the internet, if your laptop is connected to the internet, currently you're watching or you're trying to stream this video, it has an IP address, right? It is the only way of detecting. That is why it's easy for you to detect who is making a call, or when you commit some crime on the internet, it's easy to track down who has done it, because every device connected to the internet has an IP address, right? Every device completely, it has every device has an IP address, and this IP address is a way of identification, right? So we have, if you have two laptops connected to the internet, each of those laptops they have their personal IP addresses that are not the same. So they have a distinct IP address. Now we started up this server, and it's assumed that this it's virtual. So it's not a physical server. That's why I call it a virtual server, right? And it's currently residing in London. So this server has an IP address. So it means that if I want to access this server, right, I can access this server using the IP address, right? If I want to access your phone currently, right, but it's going to take a lot of technologies, and service providers like MTN or Glo, they already have a security around it. But then if I want to, so that's why you should be careful of the apps you install on your phone. So if I want to access your phone now, all I just need is the IP address. I can ping your phone using the IP addresses. And if that's why when you install a malware or a virus in your app, they basically steal your, whenever you connect to the internet, they basically steal your data because they have a way of getting your IP address and getting the information about your phone, right? So let's try and access now. This is the IP address, and I want everybody to do this, right? This is the IP address of this server. So if I'm going to start out, I'm going to start up a new server after this, and we are also going to try accessing it. So for this server, I'm going to just copy the IP address, right? And I'm going to paste it on my web browser, and I'm going to see if I'm going to be able to access it, right? You can see that basically I have this server. I'm able to access this server currently using the IP address. So I want everybody to do the same. Now you understand that these are numbers. It's not like www.google.com, www.girlslead.com, or facebook.com, right? And I will explain further as we go. So I want everyone to try accessing this IP address here. Um, I've pasted it. Tell me what you see. Tell me if you're able to see Welcome to Nginx, and I will make some more progress on this Nginx app.
Yeah, I'm seeing welcome to NGINX.
Yeah, sweet. So what you're actually able to do is that you are able to access this server I just started. Now, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to shut down this server, right? I'm going to just stop it. I'm not going to delete it. Let me just stop it. And let's see if can any other person access it. Tell me if you can. Okay, Uche Obi says I can see Nginx, right? Let me just stop it and let's see if you're going to be able to access it. So let's be sure that this is the server we are talking about. So I'm stopping it, and it's going to take a few seconds to stop. All right. It's stopped now. Can you access this? Try accessing it. Let's see. Let's try accessing this IP address. Let's see. I guess it's you won't be able to access it anymore because I've already stopped it. Right. So let me go ahead and start it up. But there's one thing about starting this up. When I start it up, it just gives it. It's going to give it a new IP address. So we are going to start using the new IP address. So I'm starting it up, and I'll share the new IP address. So each time you stop and start it, this can be mitigated using static IP addresses. But I'm not ready because this is not like a cloud class. We are not going to go in and go into the rabbit hole and start trying to configure static IP addresses. But it's as simple as just clicking a few buttons and attaching a static IP address to the server. So I'm going to refresh, and let's give it a few more seconds. Then should be up. Then I can share this. Then we can continue. Okay, so it's running now, but trust me, you won't be able to access it using this old IP address because the IP address has changed. So I'm going to share the new IP address on the chat. Let's try using this new IP address, and let's see. Yeah, welcome to Nginx, and I'm going to paste it and try accessing it. Let's see if you can access it. Then I'm going to. So someone is asking what is Nginx. Nginx is just basically an application that is used to interpret HTML. And HTML is just a programming language for designing web pages. So I'm going to let me edit that page so that we can change the content on the page. I hope I'm not too fast. I'm just trying to compress this into the amount of time I have. Okay. So basically, that page is just a default page. I'm just editing the page currently and just changing the content on it. So let me go and can you try refreshing that IP address and let me also refresh it from my end. Let's see if the content has changed. I think the content has changed because I have edited the web page, right? Okay, so you see that the content has changed, right? It's no longer welcome to Nginx. So it's just basically a web page. Now let's take this our cloud infrastructure a step further, then we can continue with our webinar. So it gives you a lot of context. So like I already explained, we are adding numbers, we are putting in, we are typing numbers into these web browsers. But we know that this is not coming from a web, how to use web and how to use internet. We all know, I don't think anybody here has had to access a website using the IP address, right? I know most people don't, at least people who are not in cloud or tech savvy, they've not had to access. They usually use a domain and a web address to access it, right? But the truth is that behind those web addresses you use or domain names you use or www.facebook or www.google or Nairaland or the many websites you visit or netflix.com, it's actually a number that is behind it. So this number is what gives it like a unique identity. And the thing is that um, the concept of domains were created because um, the tech, the internet community, the global internet community and planning management community was um, wanted something that people could remember. Of course, people couldn't remember numbers as fast as they would remember names and acronyms and all. So now what we are going to do is that since this is not very easy to remember, we're just going to go ahead and add a domain. So even if this IP address changes like it changed a few minutes ago, we wouldn't have to worry about um, whether the domain is going to change or not. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go into my root 53. So I already have a domain that is registered to this account, which is the Fulcrum 6 domain. So I'm just going to add a subdomain to it and point that subdomain to this IP address. So um, I have a few domains here, and let's see, fulcrum6.com. So I want it in such a way that when you visit, um, 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 let's say, demo app, yeah, demoapp.fulcrum6.com is going to redirect you to this server. But before we do that, let's try and visit demoapp.fulcrum6.com so that we are sure that these things were not preset before we added these records. So try and access demoapp.fulcrum6. So we do demoapp.fulcrum6.com. This is a new domain we want to use to be able to access our server. So I think it should return when you copy this and paste it. I think it should return site unavailable or site can be reached. So we're just going to go ahead and point this demoapp.fulcrum6.com. Let's point it to our the IP address of our server that contains our awesome app, right? It's still, I've just refreshed and it's still going through. So I'm just going to create the records and I'm going to reduce the TTL. The TTL of 5 seconds. Right. With the records, and I think it's going to take about 30 seconds for it to propagate. So it means that I should be able to see this after about 30 seconds. So basically, what I've just done is that I have created a server. Um, let's assume that this is a proper app, or these are netflix.com, right? Set up netflix.com, which has been worked on by the engineers. Because my role here, you've seen that here I've not written any code. What I did basically in trying to update this is just what you would ordinarily have an engineer, a software engineer do, build the applications and copy it to you. You're just going to set up the application, right? So I've not written any code that requires, I'm not the one responsible for the design. I'm not the one responsible for building the application. I'm just the one responsible to start the servers and make sure that it's running, and just manage the life cycle of the servers from start to end. So I'm just going to refresh this now. See, can someone try refreshing, and let's see if it's going through. All right. Try refreshing, try your phone, try your laptops. It's going to, sometimes you have DNS issues. So let's, okay. Or you try another web browser. Let me try Edge. Let me try Edge and see. It's going to take some time for it to load. But while it's trying to load, what we are going to do is I'm going to continue and come back to this. So, um, so now we've been able to set up a cloud provider, right? We've been able to set up a server using the AWS cloud provider. And basically, the steps are pretty much similar. They are 90% similar in every of these cloud provider to set up a server, set up a simple app and deploy them, right? Now, what are the necessary skills? I know what are the necessary skills that you require to build a cloud carrier. Those are the things we'll be discussing next. Because I know this looks interesting, it looks nice to be able to work. I mean, there's a lot of fanfare that comes with it, right? But what are the necessary skills you need to learn to be able to break into this cloud engineering field, to be able to learn how to set up servers, to be able to manage cloud infrastructure, and possibly get a job with a cloud computing company or a software engineering company? Um, and what do you need to learn? And the first thing you need to learn is that you need to learn how the cloud operating systems work, right? The cloud operating system is, if you look at the computer I'm using currently, it's Windows, it's a Windows PC, right? Mostly what we use in the cloud is Linux or Unix operating system. So, which means that you need to learn how the Linux operating systems work at a very high level, because I assume that you're just starting out. When I started out, I did not know a lot about Linux operating system, but I knew just enough to get me by. I didn't know things like IP tables. I wasn't privy to. I didn't know a lot of things that that was necessary to build, like to become an advanced Linux engineer. But I knew just the necessary things that was required for me to, to do my daily job, and that is the necessary skills you require. These are one of the necessary skills you require. Now, you also you also need to learn about a cloud provider, right? And which what we've used today as an example is AWS. You need to learn some DevOps tooling, which we are going to discuss later. You need to learn how programming languages work. You're not learning a programming language as a prerequisite. You're just learning a programming language um, alongside your skills as a DevOps engineer. Okay, so since what I'm trying to build and deploy and manage is software, right? I need to understand how it works. I'm not learning it to become a software engineer. I just need to know how simple applications are built, how APIs work, how Python works, or how Golang works, or how HTML and CSS works. I just want to learn enough to get me by, which is what you require, which is what you need as you journey through. Right now, it's different from what I said in the beginning. It's the same with what I said in the beginning, rather. right? That it's not a prerequisite. I've seen a lot of people who wanted to go into cloud, and the first thing they went to learn is learning programming language. They spent 6 months, 1 year trying to learn how to build softwares. But at the end of the day, you're not going to be building softwares as a cloud engineer. So as you learn how to use AWS, how to set up EC2 instance, I believe if I teach you this, if you within the next, if I spend 1 2 hours teaching you how to do this, you will learn it and know how to do it. So I mean, it's going to be easy for me to say, okay, go and set up a server, go and set up so server for me. These are the specifications. Would be able to do it without having to SSH into this and do any of learn how to code or do anything, right? So that's what I'm trying to say, that you don't need the skill, right? It's a different domain. Now let's okay, it's still coming through. Now the next thing is, um, what do we require? Because I mean, this is like a summary. What do we require as what do we require to learn now that you're going to start learning? What exactly should you learn, right? What exactly should you learn? And this is what I call the building blocks of building a career in cloud computing. The first thing you need to learn is, like I said, learn how create your AWS account, which is the most important thing, right? Create your AWS account. Then you do crash courses. There are some things called crash courses in YouTube. They are usually like 30 minutes, 1 hour, right? Learn how HTML works, how version control works, how databases work, how backend works, and how Linux operating systems work. This can take you a month to learn, right? These are just um, your building blocks, because when you build cloud infrastructure, what we use cloud infrastructure to deploy and manage software, right? What runs on cloud infrastructure is not um, we don't use it's not just there for fancy. We want to use it to run softwares, we want to use it to manage and host softwares. Cloud infrastructure is what powers Netflix, is what powers Facebook, is what powers Google, is what powers any of the big brands, like things like Paystack, InterSwitch, you know, right? It's what powers all the technologies we can think of, right, that are enterprise based, right? So you build it so that you're able to run software, but you can't run software if you don't understand, have an overview of how it works, right? You might be able to install, set up EC2 instances, set them up, add the A records. And by the way, if anybody is able to access this, please let me know, because sometimes you have DNS issues, right? So you might be able to set up EC2 instances and set up Nginx. I mean, what I've done here in the past 10 minutes is just set this up, and it's very easy to follow through. But what if I tell you to set up maybe a, a Node.js app, or an app that runs on Golang, or an app that runs on Python, or an app that runs on maybe Ruby on Rails, right? You'll be confused. But I can still use this same machine, the server, to set up an app that runs on Golang, EC2, um, Golang, Python, or Ruby on Rails, right? So it depends on what you want to use it for, but then you need to understand how programming languages work, right? This engineers, there's a popular saying that says, if you don't know what something is used, what you want to use something for, it's like an Igbo adage, or so the abuse of it is inevitable. So you need to understand, the requirements of the programming language, the how these programming languages are being set up and how they work on your PC. So you can go on and build like small hello world applications using HTML, using Node.js, and create a GitHub account and host them on GitHub, right? Now, the next step for you after you've done this, and after you've created, you've gotten a certain level of knowledge of how databases work, how front end work, how networking works, what are the concept of IP addresses, what are the concept of backend, what does backend mean, and what does front end mean, what does version control mean, and what does Linux operating system, how to install things. Remember, for me to install something here, basically what I did was sudo apt install, let me say, um, Nginx, right? That was what I did. I did not go and download a software and install it here, right? Double click on it and install it. So there are different concepts of operating system usage, how softwares are being installed, how softwares are being removed, how softwares are being managed, how to set up networking on operating systems, all right? You basically just need to learn the basics of them. Then after learning the basics of them, I think you have some experience. So when someone says IP address or someone says domain names, you understand the difference between IP addresses and domain names. You understand what is meant by when somebody says, oh, it's a HTML application or it's a Node.js application, it's a backend application, it's a front-end application. You have some understanding of all these things. Then you can move on to the junior engineer level, where after learning these things, you should be able to take up a job as a junior engineer in most companies, right? Then you can now drill down. So these are basically AWS services. You learn how EC2 works. You learn how RDS works, EBS, S3, GitHub Actions, Drone, WAF, and IAM. All these things are Route 53. Route 53 was what we used to configure our domain names. You can see it. We went to Route 53. We went to the particular domain, which was fulcrum6.com, right? And I added a new record for it. Um, so I went to fulcrum6.com and I added a new record for demoapp.fulcrum6.com, right? So you need to understand how this works so that you're able to learn how to manage DNS and manage domain names. Then you also need to learn the concepts of VPC, things like subnets, things like route tables, things like internet gateways and how they work. Then you need to also learn concepts behind load balancers. So this, I can drop these slides with you at the end of this webinar so that you have access to it and you can reference it if you want, right? So don't worry about writing these things down or trying to screenshot or anything. I can drop it with the the program organizer, the program manager. So when you've learned all these things, what basically this is going to help you do is that it's going to help you it's going to help you learn what these services are for. There are over 300 services on AWS, and each of them are used for something. Uh, All of them are different. The usage for all of them are different. So you can come here and look for the services on AWS. You have EC2, you have RDS, you have DynamoDB, Route 53. There are so many services. You come to analytics, you have EMR, and you have this. You have application integration, you have AR and VR, you have cost management, blockchain, business applications, compute, containers, right? There are so many services here. You have for robotics, you have for satellites, you have security and identity, right? All these things are used for different purposes. So you need to learn. So you're not going to learn every one of these services as you start out. These are the necessary services that you require to learn as you start out because they are the most common services that are used to deploy and manage applications in the cloud. So after you've learned this and you've worked maybe setting up demo projects, working on personal projects, right, on your AWS account. I think at this point, it will be safe to tell you to maybe to start out your cloud certification career. Now, you don't start out, what cloud certification career does for you is that from your knowledge, because most times a lot of people go through this and just watch YouTube videos, learn the skills they require, or buy courses on Udemy. But what certification gives you is that it gives you like an all-round experience. It gives you like an all-round knowledge-based repository for you to be able to access, right? So it teaches you what are the best standards, what are the best practices to do things, right? It's just like learning how to there's a difference between learning how to fix a car as a mechanic and studying mechanical engineering and specializing on automobiles, right? So what you're trying to do now is that you're both going to learn how to use this, all right, how to set up and manage services here, and you're also going to pursue the certifications that are required so that you're well grounded, you're well rounded on how AWS works. Now, the first certifications you're going to look at are going to be the associate certification, right? you're going to, sorry, the foundational certification, which is, I'm sorry, I'll have to switch between the slides so that I can cross-reference these things. It's the foundational certification, which is like um, the cloud practitioner um, certification. So basically, it's just fundamental knowledge. What service is used for this? What service is used for that? Then you can pursue. Forget this 1 year cap here. You necessarily don't need 1 year to be able to start pursuing these certifications, right? I've seen people who have done this in less than 3, 4 months, depending on your consistency. Then you can pursue the solutions architect associate. You can do. You can pursue any one of these certifications here, but I usually recommend people starting out from this, right? And clearing this out. So the first step is to get this, then the second step is to clear this out, right? And these are the foundational certifications that you require. In that, when you do this thing, then you would have created a very good foundation um, for you to build a career in cloud. And not just that, when people want to employ you, they look at the fact that you already have done so many projects and you also have the certifications required. So you're not just an apprentice who has gone to YouTube to go and download videos and watch. You also have the certification, meaning that you sat down and you've read and you studied and you know how these services work, how these things are being done, right? You can go on to also pursue the specialty certification and maybe the professional certifications. These are the two most difficult certification. So I would advise anyone who is going to go for this to make sure you build a lot of competence. But I don't want to get you confused. It's not all about the certifications. The certifications, if you're going to get a job and build a career, the certifications are important, but much more what you can do, the practical experience of what you can do. I've seen people who are hired without certifications. But to make your chances, to give yourself more chances, it's good that when you build a practical experience, you also back it up with certifications. I would rather hire somebody who has 2 years practical experience and certifications than someone who just has 2 years certificate and 2 years and practical experience, or who just has certifications. So basically, when you're done with this, and these are the level, this most times the people I've worked with and the people I've mentored and coached, this is where they get to and they get jobs, right? Most of them get to this place, and when they master these services and a few of the services here, maybe 1 or 2 services here, maybe mostly Terraform, right? And Docker, they actually get jobs, right? Now, but mostly when you master the things here, right? Trust me, you're good to start throwing in your applications and getting interviews. Now, the next thing is mid-level engineer. That at the mid-level engineer level, you are not just going to be talking about AWS services. You're going to be talking about cloud automation, configuration management, infrastructure as code, and containerization as a whole, right? You're going to be dealing with things like Chef and Ansible for configuration management, and dealing with Pulumi, Terraform, and CloudFormation for building your infrastructure as a code. Now, you can also, because a lot of services are becoming most organizations and most cloud deployments are becoming container native, right? You need to acquire the skills required for Dockerization, Kubernetes, ECS, and Nomad, right? Most of these are interwoven. So if you go on to learn Kubernetes, of course, you would get some Docker experience too, right? So at this level, I if at this level, I don't advise people to wait to get to this level or learn all these things before they. At this level, I expect that you started out your cloud career and you're just building on existing knowledge and trying to make yourself, to increase your knowledge, to build a level of capacity that is going to be able to give you a better ground to negotiate for better pay, and also to get things like remote jobs, working for international companies, right? And at the senior engineer level, right? At the senior engineer level, basically, you're no longer talking about what you need to learn. You're now specializing, right? At this level, you can go on to do so many job roles, right? And these job roles are basically at the mid-engineer level, you could be working as an automation engineer and SRE or cloud solutions architect or a serverless engineer or a cloud. So at the mid-engineer level, your boss might be asking you to do so many things that cut across this, right? But when you get to the senior engineer level, right, you don't try to do. You're not a master. A jack of all trades, right? Because at this level, these are some of the. This is the level where um, critical business decisions are made, right? So if you need to you need to learn these skills, and mostly the skills you learn here are what leads to what you specialize in. So if you're trying to specialize in automation, SRE, data engineering, security, I think there are a few of them, but then I would edit them. Basically, these are the things you need to specialize in. You need to learn Kafka. You're talking about going into data engineering. You need to learn Kafka. You need to know how Kinesis data streams work. You need to understand Glue. That's if you're using AWS. Other cloud providers have other services that they use to achieve this specialization. Like SRE, you need to master PagerDuty and Datadog and probably Ops Genie, right? So this is where you get to, and trust me, you're fully at the level where you can easily get international roles, and you can easily work with and manage a team of engineers who are um, a team of cloud engineers. So we've done this. I wanted to do this hosting. I wanted to do this demo after I talked about this, and I felt that what we've done here will just give you a lot of context into what we are talking about. So if you go and refresh this application, um, can you just refresh? Let's see. It should go through. It should be going through now. I think it has properly propagated now. So if you go to demoapp.foodcom6.com, it's going to show you this. Tell me that you can see it. So someone said, do you recommend the three certifications in associate? Yes, I recommend the three certifications in associate, and I'll tell you why. The three certifications in associate, first of all, they are interwoven, meaning that the knowledge in three of them are shared. But it gives you, at the associate level, you're not specializing, right? This is the level where you specialize. At the associate level, you're trying to get, at that associate level, you're basically a junior engineer, a mid-level engineer. At that level, you're trying to get as much knowledge as you can to you're trying to get as much knowledge as you can to position yourself better in your career. So you are not specializing, right? And this is what I tell people: the associates. I feel the associate certifications are important because they widen your horizon. They widen. They help you specialize, right? You can't just specialize when you don't know what your strengths and weaknesses are, right? So when you get the certifications in those three associates, you decide whether you're going to be a DevOps engineer, you want to do solutions architect, um, you want to go into networking or data engineering. Let's take for instance, when you get these certifications here, right? When you get this here, this is just very basic. You can even study for it for a month or so and pass it if you're dedicated to it. Then sysops and developer are more DevOps engineering related. Solutions architects are more solutions architect professional related. But then all the knowledge you require here, right, are going to help you build better pipelines, become a better DevOps engineer. The knowledge you have here is also going to help you become a better solutions architect, right? So it's not necessary. You can actually become you can skip these certifications and write the if you want to write the solutions architect professional, you can skip these other two, sysops and developer, and just write solutions architect and solutions architect professional. But I feel that in a in an environment like let me use Nigeria as an example. Trust me, you're going to be jack of all trades when you start out your career, right? and you're going to have knowledge gaps if you're trying to specialize. Like when I started, I was everything. I was both a software engineer, a DevOps engineer, an infrastructure engineer, an SRE engineer, right? I was responsible for everything the infrastructure. But as I started working with international companies, I realized that there were a lot of things that there was a lot of advocacy for specialization. Oh, if you're an SRE engineer, it's comfort. Yeah, I'm okay to tell a software engineer, see, this is not my job function. Go and meet the DevOps engineer to help you out. But of course, you know that you can. Most Nigerian startups, you're going to be the person managing, or even if you are two or three, you guys are just going to cutting across functions. So it would do a lot of good if you just write the three certifications, or you can have the knowledge and decide not to, because they actually cost money. You can actually channel your money and channel your energy into writing this or this, and maybe specializing eventually. So nobody has given me feedback concerning the. Sorry, it's already dark here. Nobody has given me feedback concerning the demo app. Tell me that you can see it.
Yes, I can see it. It's working here.
Oh, awesome. All
Um,
right.
sorry, I have a
Okay.
question.
Please ask.
Yeah. So, what's the difference between DevOps engineering and cloud engineering, and where is the synergy?
So, when you talk about cloud encompasses DevOps, cloud encompasses SRE, cloud encompasses platform engineering, um, encompasses infrastructure engineer, cloud encompasses cloud networking engineer. So, cloud is like a an all-encompassing name for somebody who works in the cloud. Um, I Across the organizations I have worked and I work, I have different roles in every one of them. I don't have the same role in in the companies I consult for and the companies I work with. In the company I work as an SRE engineer, I work with Datadog, I work with PagerDuty, and in another company, I work as a platform engineer. In fact, I lead a platform engineering team, and I basically am responsible for the tools required for the engineers to be productive. So I am also responsible to build out. I use Terraform to build out the infrastructure, and I also work with the SRE team to make sure that the application is online, and have meetings with them and decide and manage SLOs and service level objectives and service level indicators. So, and another company, I just basically work as a DevOps engineer. What a DevOps engineer does is like it's just responsible for building CI/CD pipelines, right? CI/CD pipelines is that when I write my code and I push it to a code repository, my job is done, right? The automation from the code repository to the server, I'm responsible for it, right? So I work as a CI/CD engineer, as a DevOps engineer. They build CI/CD pipelines and manage existing ones, improve them, and you know that's basically the difference. So a cloud engineer can be any of these things that I've spoken about, right? It's just like an all-encompassing name. Then a DevOps engineer has his own specialization. He just specializes in building the pipelines that are required to sorry, the pipelines that are required to, just like I've explained here, right? The pipelines that are required to um, automate the application from the code repository to the server. I don't think it's here anyways. So I've been going through these slides, and I think I have discussed most of the things I want to discuss here. So you have an automation in your cloud careers. You can eventually specialize, right? As an automation engineer, SRE, cloud solutions architect, serverless engineer, data engineer, security engineer, and the cloud network engineer. In the course of my career, there are just two roles that I haven't worked as. I haven't worked as a serverless engineer before, and I haven't worked as a cloud network engineer before. Um, that's because they are not things that interest me, right? I have taken jobs as automation engineer, I SR engineer, currently work as one. I've also worked previously for a Nigerian startup as a for a few months as a data engineer, building out their analytics and data engineering pipelines and data setting up their data lakes and all. So when you specialize, these are most of, I think I didn't add a DevOps engineer here, but when you specialize, these are some of the areas where you would look into building your career in. So I think that brings us to the end, right, of this. We're also going to talk about certifications, but we already discussed certifications and in Fulcrum 6. We just ended our Fulcrum 6 is just like I explained to you, is a free boot camp. We have it once every year for now, right? Basically, it's just like an 8 weeks boot camp where we come discuss cloud, teach you the basics of setting up cloud infrastructure, things that revolve around cloud. Basically, introductory level of AWS, hands-on introductory level of AWS. I think our next boot camp is going to be next year, and you know, um, we are not sure of what the date is going to be yet. So, yeah, thank you so much, and I'm open to your questions.
Right. Thank you very much. This session was very interactive. It's quite a lot to take in, but I really learned a lot. So thank you very much. I'm really grateful.
You're welcome.
Okay. So are there any questions? Yeah. Thank you. Are there any questions? I know we're sending lots of questions about NGINX and stuff during the course of this presentation. But I will clear if anybody has a question, you can raise your hand or just post in the channel. While we wait, please, we really, really need your feedback. I posted the link to the feedback form in the comment section, and so click on it. Your feedback is highly appreciated. All right, and don't worry, the slides will be sent to your mails after now. So I know it was quite a lot to take in, but can have time to go through it in our leisure times. And that's very great. And also, let me share my screen. If you want to reach out to us in Girl Leads through our website or our various social media handles, feel free to do that. So on LinkedIn, you can search the GirlLEAD Project. Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and you can just send us a message and we'll respond to you if you want to join in. Okay? Since there are no more questions, Augustine, would you like to say anything before we conclude? Augustine, are you there? Okay. All right. So thank you everyone for taking our time. Precious, thank you very, very much for.
Guys,
Okay.
for having
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Augustine. Floor is yours.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Okay, yeah. Um, Thank you so much, Precious Oku. This was very rich, super rich. I learned a lot of things. I think one major thing I learned was that so basically the cloud encompasses many other roles like the site reliability engineer, DevOps engineer, data engineer. That was something I was not really clear of initially. This was really nice to to learn about. But you mentioned that to get a career in the cloud, you don't really need to learn how to code. So from those career options, right, that you presented in your slide, um, which of them would be the easiest to get into without any knowledge of coding? So we have some members of our community who, for example, they have businesses and they are non-technical, but they would like to join, like become a techie and start a career in cloud engineering. Where can they start from without any knowledge of coding? Because I'm aware, for example, a data engineer needs to learn Python. They need to have a very good and advanced knowledge of Python and even data analytics and all of that.
All right. So the thing is, on your journey to becoming, there are two things. If you want to learn cloud, um, you're learning cloud to become a cloud engineer. You're learning cloud to be able to build cloud infrastructure on its own, on its own, without it's a lot of you require a lot of knowledge. It's techy enough, right? But then coding is not, like I said, you don't need to learn coding. It's not a prerequisite, right? So you're not going to say, oh, I don't know how to code, so I'm not going to do this, right? So I want you to understand, I want everyone to understand what I mean by it's not a prerequisite. It's not a prerequisite to um, being a cloud engineer. But as you go on, because as a cloud engineer, what you basically are doing is that you're building infrastructure to host softwares. Um, being a mechanic, right? You don't have to learn electronics. I just want to use this example now. You don't have to learn electronics to become a mechanical engineer or an automobile engineer, like a mechanic, right? But then as you journey into being a mechanic, you're going to encounter a lot of electrical faults. You're going to understand that a car in itself, maybe when you start out as just changing tires, changing oil, right? Which is where you are as an entry, like as when you start out your career, changing tires, changing oil. But eventually, you now realize that for you to changing car batteries and all, then you now realize that for you to diagnose what has happened to a dashboard, you basically need some basic level of electronics. You need to look at the switchboard. You need to look at what the board of a car and know the electronics board and know which plug connects to which. Right now, it doesn't mean that you would be an expert. You're not going to basically be a car electrical engineer, right, or electronics engineer. You just require to know that if I'm trying to diagnose why a car is not starting, it could be that the engine is maybe there's some issue in the oil. Maybe the oil is bad, or rather, maybe it needs more oil, or maybe it needs fuel, or maybe the electrical board is having some issues. Now, if you already know that the engine is good, and you know that maybe the fuel is at par, the battery is good, and it's still not starting, right? Then you know that your knowledge is deficient, because you need to be able to completely end to end understand that, oh, I've checked this, I've checked that, I've checked that, I've checked this, and it has to be one of these things. So what I'm saying is that as a cloud engineer, you don't need to learn coding, but as you journey into cloud engineering, you need to learn the basics. You're not going to learn how to build a full-blown Netflix or full-blown web application, or become a back-end engineer or front engineer, right? You're going to just learn what, okay, so when this person is trying to start my backend, somebody and a software engineer reaches out to you and says, oh, my backend application is not starting. You already know, because of your experience, right? You have an idea of why it's not starting, because you already know the basics. Or for a backend application to start, maybe the port is not correct, or um the the port is not open, or the port is not correct, or maybe you are not starting it out well, or maybe the process is dying, right? So for people who are non-techies, my advice is, um, start out with the basic course, take it and take the basic introduction, the cloud foundation course, and even understand whether it's something you want to do, right? I think cloud is as simple as it gets when you start. Then, as with every field, as you advance into it, it becomes complex, and you have to realize whether it's the journey you want to take, right? Understand, get a holistic understanding of cloud. Take, I'll share an Udemy course, right? Maybe which you can possibly use to start out. Then you can decide whether take the course first and make your decision and all. But trust me, cloud is tech, and tech is not simple, right? Tech is not simple, and tech is not rocket science. It just requires dedication and putting in the effort that is required to get it to work, as with every field, right?
All right.
Awesome.
So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Precious, for that.
All right.
Okay, Chizoba, Chizoba, you raise your hand. Hello, Chizoba, are you there? Okay, maybe it's okay. Thank you very much. Like Augustine said, please fill the feedback form to get access to the presentation slides, and also you can check out our YouTube channel. Also, don't forget to check out Fulcrum 6. He posted, you can check that across social media. Please, Precious, what's your social media, or what are your social media handles so that we can follow you? Are you on Twitter, LinkedIn?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, and my profile is linkedin.com. Yeah, basically you can find me at Libra Coda on all the handles. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So thank you very much. I really enjoyed today's session. Really learned a lot, and really grateful.
All right.
So yeah.
So
So
much for
thank you
having me.
every. Yeah, thank you. So thank you everyone, and wishing you a wonderful week ahead. All right. Bye. Bye.